warmly and why that's important with warmly, I'm sure as we go. But like I've been in marketing for 10 or 15 years. I got my start in marketing for Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. Actually, I don't know if there's any skiers or snowboarders in here, but like I had a ski in, ski out office. I basically did every marketing role there is while I was at Jackson Hole, and I ended up doing our like global sales and marketing. So basically any market in the world that we wanted to target, we'd go after it with a blended approach: channel marketing, partnerships, sales, digital marketing, etc. So it was like that was demand gen before I even knew what demand gen actually was as a marketer, because you didn't really use that phrase in B2C. And moved to Utah is where Canopy is based. So it was like I wanted to ski, my wife and I wanted to ski and like progress careers and have an affordable cost of living, which does not exist in Jackson Hole.
True.
And had one stint working for leading marketing for a manufacturing company, which was not great, and shifted over to Canopy. And so I've been Canopy for 4 years, leading demand gen, and yeah, where do we want to go from there?
Yeah. So one of the things I actually want to kind of ask you, I'm going to skip my introduction because I feel like you did basically every marketing job and now kind of are labeled as a demand gen marketer. I think even now the demand gen label is a bit all over the place. Demand gen for different companies means sort of different things, I think, at times, and I don't think there's really a consensus on that term. So I'm curious how you kind of view your job as a demand gen marketer and what that kind of means and what is in your purview.
Yeah, totally. I did every job in marketing except for creative.
Oh, okay.
I won't touch creative. It's not in my element. But yeah, it is interesting because demand gen, I think some people just think it's lead gen.
I got that all.
Which has, all sorts of connotations. Honestly, I think it's the most holistic side of marketing. We're kind of the orchestrators. We have most of the budget, and at least at Canopy, we work alongside the content team, alongside the creative team, alongside the product marketing team. But we're the ones that kind of bring that together and kind of play offense, right? Like we're the ones that build those campaigns based on the content, or we give feedback to the creative team or the content team in terms of what's working in the market. Okay, let's do more of this, or this isn't working, let's do less of that. So I do look at it as sort of like being the orchestrators and also the ones that spend the most money and are most closely aligned with sales.
Yeah, got it. So when you spend the most money here, are you mostly talking about spending on, let's say, paid ads, or are there other things you're kind of spending money on?
Yeah, for us, we find some success with paid ads. Being vertical SaaS, we do a lot with like industry associations and publications and things like that. We also do a lot with trade shows and events, which I think in some industries, trade shows are not super successful, but in our industry, they are really successful. We drive a lot of pipeline there.
So are you doing the events as a demand gen person, or are you working with somebody else there?
I have someone on my team that runs events, yes, and so that's part of the budget that I have.
Who is on your team and who works with you? Where do you fit in that org structure?
Yeah, so let's see, I report to a VP of marketing who's on the executive team at Canopy. And we've got a marketing leadership group, which is basically demand gen, content, product marketing, and creative. And those are the four main functions. And then on the demand gen team itself, I have 3 other people plus a dotted line. And so those 3 people, I've got an email marketing lifecycle person. They do all of our email marketing. They do marketing with existing customers as well as net new prospects. I have someone that I just hired that started yesterday, and so I'm being a bad manager because I'm just looking at the website right now. But she will be leading all of our paid ads, so paid social, which is like LinkedIn, Facebook, Google Ads, etc. And then I have that trade show person.
Got it. So sometimes do you guys own the website at Demand Gen? Because I've had plenty of times where I've been in org structure where I've been in demand gen, and then the other side of me is product marketing. And product marketing is going to own the website. Yeah. And then there's other times where I've owned the website but not content, and other times where content is kind of reported into me because most of the campaigns kind of start from content. So what's the couple questions in there, but your structure is interesting to me because you've got email and you've got paid, and it sounds like the website too.
Yeah. So the website's a team effort. Okay. Which, for better or for worse, right?
Who's got the final say? If it's you and the product marketer in a fight, do you win, or is the product marketer?
You know, that's a good question. I think it depends on how passionate one is about the particular topic.
If you want to throw a tag on the site, let's say, who wins? You win the product marketer.
Oh, we would win that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we kind of split it up. So the message is product marketing.
Yeah.
But everything like related to conversion or SEO is marketing.
Got it.
We also have someone from the creative team who's just like making sure that the brand identity and the visual aspect is there as well. So we have a committee.
Got it. So when you do the community stuff, especially when it comes to like changes to the website, I think this is hyper relevant for if you're going to put Warmly on there in a chatbot. What did it look like to get certain things set up? Was it you that were just like, we're going to do this, and then content had to come along and product agreed because it wasn't necessarily a messaging thing, or was there kind of like a bunch of discussions back and forth on that?
Honestly, it was like, that sounds great, demand, should go for it.
Yeah.
And so that's how we did it. I'm sure it would work different at different orgs, especially with the product marketing and the message.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of trust there, and we've got a bigger team on demand gen, so we just kind of are rolling with that.
Are you the biggest team with the biggest? You got the biggest budget. Do you also have the biggest team?
I think, actually, surprisingly, our creative team has one more person than our team.
Yeah.
But, not budget-wise.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you're starting campaigns or starting any kind of initiative, like, does it start with you? Does it start, obviously the VP of marketing is going to have their input because they're the leader of the whole thing, but like, where's the genesis of the campaigns coming from? Are you reactive in kind of your role, or are you proactive as in, we should run this because I want to run a paid campaign, and then creative and product marketing fall in line? Does it start with product marketing? Like, where does it sort of start, and like, where does it kind of end, and where are you sort of in that process?
Yeah. It's a good question because it feels like it's a little different every time in some ways. Like, for us anyways, there's like the new campaign, and I think people like think about campaigns a lot as, oh, there's this new message or new product that we're trying to get out there. If that's the case, we work really closely with product marketing, and maybe it's based on some new feature release or something like that that we know our audience is going to care about. But a lot of it too is just evergreen stuff that's running in the background that drives a lot of our results. So it's, things like SEO or Google Ads that just, because we've got a known product category, so people come looking for us. So it's just like some of that always on stuff doesn't require a ton of like back and forth hot potato. It's just sort of like a demand gen function.
Yeah.
But as far as campaigns go, typically we'll be orchestrating the campaign.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so any of the logistics, any of the kind of like stuff like that, are you assisted by like ops at all, or are you just kind of like doing this in the department yourself?
We're assisted by ops now because we just hired an awesome marketing operations person, and that's such a critical role. I think that if you don't have that on your team, like a really strong marketing operations person, I feel like you can do a lot of extra work that you might not otherwise have to do. And so that, and especially with implementation of a product like Warmly, having a strong marketing operations person is so helpful.
Yeah. How do they interact with you like now and maybe like with Warmly now? So was it originally you kind of just working with Warmly, now this marketing ops person is kind of taking over, and maybe just even like the rest of your tech stack? Like, how has this kind of made your life easier? How's the like interaction with your tech now changed with an ops person?
Having an ops person is like we can come with an idea and they can sort of say, okay, cool, that's actually going to work, or that's not going to work, or here's a tweak I'd make that workflow or something like that. And especially with something like Warmly, for instance, we don't really want the chat to come up with a sales message to a customer. And so the operations person is the person who's going to build that exclusion segment and make sure we're dialed there. And so they're critical in anything we're going to do with a product like Warmly.
Yeah, got it. Are you the connector with sales, or does everybody in marketing talk to sales? Or are you kind of the main connector? What's that relationship like?
Yeah, we all talk to sales for sure. I would say we do most in terms of like the handoff, and then product marketing does more in terms of like sales enablement, messaging, competitive intelligence, that side of things.
Yeah.
But we interact with sales really closely because we're sending them all of the demos, and we're like 70 to 80% inbound in terms of lead flow. And so, we rely on each other a lot.
What's the back and forth in that sense? Do you have a standing, because like my head of revenue, if he's in here right now, but him and I meet ad hoc basically as much as possible.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is always get on the same page and agree on a bunch of shit that we want to try and a bunch of shit that we want to do, and just make sure that lines up with wherever he wants his team to go and whatever I'm thinking is valuable. are you meeting with the head of sales? Is there like a sales manager? What's that back and forth? Are you guys trying to stay in sync? Is that handled maybe by the level above you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's both. So myself and our VP of marketing meet with sales on a regular basis. We have a bi-weekly meeting where it's like basically revenue operations, demand gen, marketing, and sales leadership. And we look at, the funnel, for lack of a better word, and we meet bi-weekly. That meeting's led by our CRO, who started in marketing, which is really cool.
Oh yeah, that's very rare for a CRO.
It's
It's
very
usually
helpful.
just a fancy CSO title.
Yeah, because he gets marketing, right?
Yeah.
And I realize I'm kind of diverting a little bit, but I think it's super important to have executive buy-in for marketing to be successful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just like chasing your tail, trying to prove that you're successful and show attribution and stuff. And in this case, I feel like there's trust there with sales and marketing in terms of what we're sending their way. And so we have more constructive conversations where it's, okay, what's the quality of leads in this segment? Or, you know what I mean? Like, how is this campaign doing? Or like, what, like our upmarket AEs, enterprise AEs are not getting as much lead flow. Why is that? Like, we can have honest conversations about that kind of stuff.
Got it. What are kind of the core KPIs that are always coming up? What are you kind of beholden to? And then do you have kind of a bi-directional relationship with sales? I think the most successful relationships I've ever had with sales teams are where there's like a give and take, where it's like marketing is promising a certain amount of stuff, but in return, sales is also promising like a certain level of effort, and that kind of is what gets discussed a lot of times in like larger or strategic meetings. Is there anything sort of set up like that, or what are the kind of KPIs that are like being beholden to for you?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of meeting that I discussed earlier where it's sales leadership and marketing leadership meet together, we're all about pipeline and marketing. So it's like, how much pipeline are we sending to sales? And once it's pipeline, not that we're completely out of the equation, but then at that point, it's on them, right?
Yeah.
And so we look at just some of those different conversion rates. So it's, okay, we're giving you X amount of pipeline. Are you hitting your win rate goals? And those are the things that we're looking at.
Got it. When you have, let's say, like worse months or like better months, like what do discussions kind of look like there? What are sort of the pain points you see or find when, I don't know, let's say lead count's down or qualified pipeline is down? What does the discussion look like then? And what are you looking at?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a good month, there's no questions are asked, right? Everyone just kind of high fives and it's all good. But if it's a bad month, I think we're lucky where we don't overreact typically. It's like we're starting to move, and we've been so driven by inbound marketing where we've been like very month to month, and we're starting to think about it more on a quarterly basis now. So there's a little more patience as you shift more towards quarterly versus monthly, because monthly can be, it's really tough, right? And obviously like sales has a really tough job with a monthly quota, but I think like looking at it more quarterly has been helpful. Yeah. But the conversations we have are like around volume of demos and like maybe why that was less than we expected, or maybe win rate was really down in one segment. Like, at a certain point, like it's kind of all of us, right? It's product. It's not just marketing and sales. It's product. It's CS. It's like all of those things. And so I think it's important to be like not pointing blame at product or not pointing blame at sales or marketing, and just kind of look at all the factors. Hey, what's up?
Nice to see you in real life.
You too.
Hey guys.
Welcome.
No, that's great. Spice it up here. That's great.
We have
No pressure.
our second guest. Our panel is now complete.
Sorry guys, North Carolina is surprisingly cold right now.
All right.
The toilets on my airplane froze.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't leave the...
Oh, I thought it was like plane function. It was just literally the toilet.
The toilets on the airplane froze, and then when they were defrosting them, they found that the pipes burst.
Oh.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah. Didn't know that was a thing.
So that's a new fear for me. So that's
Yeah.
Well, as you're here, do you mind introducing yourself and your company and what you do and all that good stuff? I think a lot of people know Orum at this point and are probably familiar and have probably even seen your content, but
yeah. So hey guys, I'm Sarah Reece. I am the director of demand gen at Orum. I am in North Carolina. We're an all remote company too. Orum is a sales tech tool. We really focus on helping reps build more pipelines, specifically over the phone. We're known for our AI dialer, the first in market there. We also have a pretty kick-ass sales floor and a lot of analytics and call library tools to help sales leaders with their coaching.
Awesome, thank you. So we just asked Patrick this, but this will be a good question for you too. Is what is your philosophy on demand gen? Where does it fit within the company? Where does it fit within marketing? What does that kind of term mean to you as a head of demand gen?
Okay, I don't know my audience, but I'm just gonna speak freely because I've got a lot of shit on LinkedIn from my POV about this. But honestly, I feel like demand gen kind of sits at the crux of marketing as the conduit between marketing and sales. I think we have a really great opportunity to build a strong relationship with the field. The field is the closest to the customer, so we know that being able to communicate directly with sales is going to make great marketing campaigns. I think a lot of times demand gen gets kind of classified in conversion rate optimization, programmatic, the opsy space, and I think that's kind of selling us short because our access to the field, our access to like frontline information on web performance, ad performance, email performance actually makes us really strong inputters into the campaigning, the creative, the messaging. And like at Orum, I oversee brand and demand as the director of demand gen role. And I really think that's the way it's moving, but don't tell the brand people.
So do the brand people know they work for you yet, or is it a dotted line kind of situation?
You're assuming we have a brand team.
I know that, again, who's in the marketing org? Let's start there.
Okay, so we have a VP of marketing. We have the demand gen team, which includes programmatic marketer, an experienced marketer, which is a fancy way of saying events and everything else that you experience. We have marketing ops, which kind of like is dotted line into rev ops. And then we have product marketing, a handful of product marketeers, and then we have one content person that kind of sits in the middle of it all. So when it comes to the brand stuff, I tend to act as like the campaign manager, the creative director. Work is shared between a few of us, and then we have agency partners to support us. So no in-house creative strategist or brand person to be accountable to.
That makes sense. So is demand, because for you it's more of a shared effort, but for you, Sarah, is demand kind of like the engine or maybe the genesis for most of the campaigns that Orum runs?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a unique setup for you guys? It feels unique in some ways.
Yeah, I think it is pretty unique, and honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the intentional size of our team. I've been at Orum for almost 3 years now, and we've kept our team small for a reason. And we've done a really good job of hiring marketers that have an interesting skill set. So my background, before I was a demand gen leader, I was in more of a campaign marketing role. So I bring a lot of that know-how to the table. And then way before that, I was in media planning. So I think we've been able to combine it in a really seamless way at Orum. And based on what I've talked about with my peers, I think that is something that folks are tiptoeing towards, but you have to find the right demand gen person and team.
Got it. Do you think the role of demand gen is like slowly evolving and like the term has changed? Do you think demand gen like stays as a thing, or do you think demand gen marketers start being called something else? Because when I was in the late teens, I was a revenue marketer, but like everything I did was fucking demand gen. And before that, I was a quote unquote like growth marketing lead, but everything was demand gen. Okay, come on now. This is a job. So, if we're looking at, okay, I'm going to talk to demand gen people, and they're doing demand gen work, do you think it's no longer going to be like demand gen people that are like doing demand gen work? Is this an old term? Is this going away?
Not anytime soon. I think that there's like a cutting edge group of people. Like, I know that the purpose of this conversation is to help people think about how demand generating people think so that you can sell and market to them and build products that work for them. And I think that's just a really hard job, because how are you going to segment all of us, given demand gen is a bit of a catch-all nowadays, in my opinion. I think you have the bleeding edge group where demand gen is part of the campaign and brand, but then you have the very stodgy, like when I get recruited for demand gen, VPs of demand gen, and I'm like, this is glorified marketing ops. No. And I think that's like, I love mobs, but I don't want to do it. And so I think that's like a portion of the people, and then you have the more programmatic side, and then you have the folks that are tiptoeing into field marketing, depending on the size of the organization you're talking to. So I feel like you're gonna have sub-personas within the demand gen group.
Yeah, that's fair. Where do you think because you just answered this too, Patrick, like where does demand gen and MOPS kind of start, right? Because I feel like a lot of people who got into demand gen, me sort of included, were like technically adept people as well. Like they're just kind of like good at figuring things out, and so like they naturally were like, I don't know, I learned how to do API shit, like I learned how to connect these two apps, I learned how to do an integration, and so, but there is MOPS now as like an actual thing, and then like obviously there's also like the concept, I feel like, of GTM engineering, which is coming up as well. In like, where does all that shit with demand gen end and all that shit with MOPS start, for lack of a better term?
Did you already answer this question?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean,
I've been talking too much. I've been here for like 15 minutes.
it's a good question. I mean, because I agree, like you do kind of fall into demand gen a little bit by being good at some of that technical, like more operations level stuff. But I do think that like it reaches a point where you do need someone that specializes in marketing operations, especially now that like it's more complex than just, you know, some of like the marketing operations things you would have done 5 years ago were pretty mellow compared to what you can do now, right? And so I think it's one of the most critical roles on a demand gen team. And if you have good marketing ops as a demand gen leader, you're just so much more empowered to do things, right? If you have an idea, it's easy to execute. You're not like hitting roadblocks from the start.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, because I feel like everything MOPS does, I feel like a lot of the demand gen marketers I've met are kind of like capable of doing it, but it's not necessarily like the best use of their time. I feel like a lot of demand gen marketers were just some of the fastest learners on the marketing team. Not that it's necessarily bad to be in any of the other spaces, but again, demand gen starting as a technical heavy role in some ways meant that essentially all of sort of the fastest learners they understand concepts really well, they pick up things really fast, but that doesn't necessarily mean they should be kind of doing everything. And I do feel like that's where a lot of the demand gen does it all kind of role sort of starts, because if you are in demand gen, usually you're gonna get a lot of shit slapped on top of you that like doesn't feel quite like your job, but you're also able to do it, and it's sort of related. I feel like marketing ops is taking some of that away, but I don't know, it does feel like of all the demand gen marketers I've also known, they're also like the most attracted to like trying new things or like trying new software, like looking at like new technology to do things, just because that's just kind of like how they got into this role in the first place, in my mind.
Yeah, I think we take like radical responsibility. Like the best demand gen marketers I know, like me for example, my background is in art and philosophy, but I've been a HubSpot admin. I've been like the admin for all of the marketing ops platforms multiple times, and it's just because in order to get my creative shit in to the wild, I have to know how to operationalize it, and in order to prove the ROI of my creative shit, I have to be able to measure it and build that back-end infrastructure. So until we were able to hire a MOPS person, I've had to do that. I still do, even as like head of demand gen today, I still do the majority of our analytics, just because like I have to prove that my swings are not misses, or hide when they are misses. That's the beauty of owning the data. To your point about MOPS, I think that's the most important hire that you can make, my MOPS person. So when I was at a previous startup, I oversaw marketing operations and had the whole ops team under me. And day one, when I started at Orum, I was like, I have a non-compete, but we're getting her, bring her over. I don't care how much it costs, and I will take, this is being recorded, but I will take Rebecca Rissinger anywhere I go. 10 out of 10. She's the best MOPS person I've ever met, and you'll see it. I call her the wind beneath my wings.
Wow.
She is.
Wow.
I mean, she is.
Best way to enable demand gen people is to help them on the operational side. Just because they can do it doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it or fit it in their schedule.
Yeah, well, it's just so much, the minutia, especially like when you think about adopting a tool like Warmly, where in the early parts of the implementation, you need to be watching each of those leads like a hawk, and sometimes you really need to be integrating with the sellers, and with us, it can be as like manual as being like, hey guys, we got like a warm bound coming in on our Slack channel. Why hasn't an SDR picked that up? Because it's sort of like all hands on deck. And I'm over here doing 713 other things and also monitoring the Warmly channel. Like, I can do it, but it's hard.
True. Being a demand person is nothing if not being neurotic about things. I know exactly that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a little neurospicy, right?
Yeah, probably yes.
Yeah, probably, right?
Probably, yeah.
I haven't met a normal one of them.
No, this is not a job for. If we could get a normal job, we would do it, but we can't. That's why we're all here. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Speaking of that, one of the things I'm interested in is looking at what you guys look at in both the short and long term. We were kind of touching on it on ops. One of the things I feel like having more help on the operational side, whether that's from a vendor, whether that's from a software or a full-time hire in general, really helps you kind of lift you up from daily grinds. But on a kind of like, if we were to find you just on a random day, what would you be focused on or trying to get through? On a normal day, if it's February 18th.
Yeah, that's one of the best and most challenging parts about demand gen, I think, is you'll find me on this day. There's probably some project that we're working on. Maybe it's, we're getting our Google offline conversion set up, or we're looking at our ad audiences or something. There's sort of like an endless amount of projects, and so there's probably something that is front of mind at that time that you're working on. But I'm also probably, depending on how you look at it, either wasting time or spending good time of looking at every demo that came in that day and what was their path. And yes, there's probably a more efficient way of doing that, like with data and reporting, but like sometimes you have to be in the weeds a little bit to pull context out of other reporting. And so that's something that I struggle with, where it's like, how much time do I spend looking at everyone's journey as a prospect to becoming a customer? And, that's a hard one to gauge. But I think to answer your question, on February 18th, you could be working on any number of things, and it's hard. Like the hardest part is just like cutting out the noise and focusing on the things that work. Because there's like literally hundreds of things you could do in demand gen that could work, but like it matters about like how well you execute it and how well that's a fit for your audience.
That's true. It's a really broad job with a lot of different potential responsibilities, which makes any one day very hard to kind of pin down on what do I do day in and day out. Even when somebody asks me what I do, I try not to mention whatever I do because it's very boring to normal people anyway, but it is sort of random whatever. I mean, not random, but the needs sort of change drastically day to day for demand, and it does feel like that. There are like 100 things you could possibly be doing, so there's not like a consistency that I feel like even other departments within marketing have, or other jobs like within the go-to-market org or the wider company kind of have. I feel like there's less predictability, which does make it fun, but also sometimes a little bit frustrating, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's like that variability is what keeps it exciting, but you have to focus on the things that are going to work for you. And I mean, you might have the CEO show up with a great idea, and it actually probably is a good idea, but it's like, how do you differentiate it? How do you differentiate it from the other 20 things you're working on, and does it relate to where your audience spends time? So for instance, like LinkedIn is a great channel. I think particularly if you're like selling into sales or marketing people, we sell to accounting firms, and some people spend a good amount of time on LinkedIn, but honestly like not that many. So there's a lot of conventional wisdom of how LinkedIn is like the best channel, but it's like it might not be the best channel in your space. And so like understanding where your customer hangs out and spends time and focusing on those things as opposed to chasing things that maybe aren't going to work for you.
That's especially true, thinking about what I've been up to this week. Seasonality plays a lot into our roles. So I'm in the process of working on budget approvals and contracting for FY25 events that are coming up because our fiscal starts Feb 1. I'm also working on executing or supporting the execution of all the events that are starting in February, and programmatizing the pre and post event follow-up strategy and orchestrating that with some of the things that we're building with account-based marketing and the new account lists that are launching in FY25, and also spinning that into Warmly and our lead follow-up work. So I'm like doing all of this interesting, weird stuff, but then I'm also standing up a pretty serious enterprise motion where the playbook that we have run for the mid-market ain't it. Those people aren't on LinkedIn. Like they go to LinkedIn to get jobs. And so there's this whole new level of audience research and different types of media buying that we need to look into that are just absolutely brand new.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if we took it out a little bit further, because you almost did that just now, but micro, daily level, it could be fucking anything that you're working on. But what what does it look like maybe like a quarterly or yearly basis? What are you focused on? What are you working on? What are you working towards on a longer scale?
I mean, yeah, that's the easiest way to back it out, right? Is okay, our goal is to grow revenue by 50% this year. What are the steps you're going to need to go through to get there, right? And so it's like you've got your budget, like you're talking about budget planning, like how you plan that through the seasonality. We're in a hyper seasonal business because we sell to accounting firms, so it's like we're going into a period where sales does not bother people. Because they're like, yo, we're busy doing taxes. Call me on April 17th or April 16th, right? Leave me alone until then, right? So it's like planning around that seasonality where it's like we're gonna launch out of tax season super hard, even though we have a compressed sales window. It's like we know how to manage for that with budget and stuff like that. And so yeah, planning the year to hit your revenue goal is like, that's ultimately the most important thing you can do, versus getting lost in all the tactics that can get you there.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have the privilege of knowing some of your seasonality, whereas like our business, we're still a Series B, and so we're still trying to figure out the seasonality, especially as we change our market. So like from a zoom out perspective, for me, I'm always thinking about revenue. I own a revenue number. I own a freakishly large revenue number. So I'm looking at ways to optimize the inbound, and then honestly I spend most of my time with the sales team. Like when I'm not launching like campaigns or doing op stuff, I'm spending my time with the sales team because I need to make sure that all of our leads become sales accepted opportunities, and I don't control that. Actually, sometimes I do cold calling as a follow-up because we're neurotic, like you said.
Yeah.
But really being deep into that, because also you and I talked about this a lot, our demand gen strategy is much more like above funnel, top of funnel, create. And I'm a firm believer that when they want to buy your shit, they'll request a demo. So I'm spending a lot of time doing like attribution stuff, trying to prove that the huge brand campaign I just ran correlates to increases in deal velocity as well as conversions.
Yeah. How successful have you been at creating that model that makes sense and is consistent every time?
I'm really good at it.
Really good at it?
Yeah. They haven't fired me after I spent a lot of money last year.
What are the sort of KPIs that you're looking at then? Because I feel like they're actually a little bit more forward facing, and I feel like this is your model, I think, and also it's probably pretty similar to some of the things that Chris Walker suggested this morning. I know, sorry.
Did you get me an autograph?
I forgot. No, it's okay. It's back on topic. So what are the KPIs that you're kind of looking at when you're talking about here's what demand gen is doing? Because I think they are a little bit different than some traditional metrics, but I do think they're very forward facing.
What do you mean when you say forward facing?
As in they will be adopted more and more as time goes on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're a trendsetter.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like when I'm reporting to the company on a weekly basis, the only thing I report on is opportunities, which are SAOs, and close one business, and then pipeline value and revenue attributed to marketing. Now that we're moving into the enterprise, we're going to start reporting on number of contacts, target accounts, and then the number of touches, and then we have some shared metrics around like velocity and things like that.
Yeah.
Because when you start moving enterprise, it's pretty clear that those are most likely going to be sales sourced opportunities. They don't request demos as often. So that's what I'm reporting on to the business. And as long as that opportunity number looks good, they don't ask me questions.
Yeah.
And when they do start asking questions, we look at everything, channel based. Like what is the growth on the website? What is the growth on our paid and organic search programming, paid and organic social? We don't do a ton of paid media, in my opinion, but we look at all of the platform level metrics and we'll report on them if people want to go that deep into the weeds.
Yeah, but as long as the number go up, nobody cares, essentially. Yeah, I feel like that's the number one thing for demand gen. As long as number go up, that's good. And everything I do is number go up.
Yeah, and then whenever Colin comes and I want to see what the campaigns are doing, I'm like, number go up.
And just for the benefit of everybody, Colin is
our VP of sales.
Yes. Yeah, just number go up, I think is a really good, that's a great way to put it. I think the last thing, and you sort of started to touch on it here, is that I'm curious about what you think 2025 will bring, like both for your company, both for demand gen, and like what you both are kind of focused on moving into 2025, and then what are some things you think you'll be scaling back on or not doing in 25 that you were doing maybe in 24 or earlier?
Yeah, I'm doing
Do you want me to go?
this.
I
No, it's
know.
fine. I will.
Okay, go.
No, I think like for us, I think because we've had success for a number of years, I mean, knock on wood, we've hit our number for, 8 quarters in a row or something like that. I think there is, though, an opportunity to refresh because I mentioned earlier, as long as, as number go up, not a ton of questions get asked. And so I think it's maybe time to ask more questions about what's actually working and looking at pipeline efficiency, what's really driving that pipeline, looking at channels with maybe more of an eye towards quality. Like we've spent a lot of money with like Facebook ads, which I think it can be good or bad, but like we use some different targeting platforms so that we have LinkedIn level targeting on Facebook. And so we can reach the right audiences there. But it's okay, is the quality really there? What's really happening down funnel with these people? Like even if they look good from the start, what's really happening? So I think it's just a deeper dive into channels and what they're doing. And then also, like you talked about brand, right? It's sort of like just continuing the growth of brand and being able to report on brand a little bit better, right? Because we see a lot of people come in organically, search, organic search, they book a demo. It's okay, like what happened to get them there?
Right.
And we have some proxies for measuring brand, but I don't think we're perfect there. So it's just like continuing to build that narrative in the company of, the strength of the brand is important. And just because we're not driving MQLs over here or something like that, like what really matters is driving that pipeline and like just trusting some of the stuff that's outside of attribution.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, you're fighting a good fight.
Yeah, it's hard out there.
Yeah. For us in FY25, we are leaning into a lot more experiences and a lot more of like our partners to do partner experiences. I've said that word like 5 times in this sentence, but I do think it's really important because people are interested in coming in person, but we're also super jaded about the traditional event format, the traditional dinner format. I'm not coming to any of your dinners, vendor. So we're trying to come up with like new ways. Are you guys doing dinners?
We're doing a happy hour.
That's not dinner.
There's gonna be food there.
Are we gonna have to sit there the whole time like this? Staring at each other's eyes? No, we're gonna play shuffleboard.
We spent a lot of money here. Stop this.
The happy hour's gonna be great, okay? Dinner where we have to sit with a set menu. No, a set menu. Don't get me started on a set menu. Yeah, so we're like not doing that. We're really trying to like push the boundaries with our experiences. When we're doing like less stuff, honestly, one of the things that I'm really proud of with Orum's marketing leadership, our VP, we have never thrown spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And we have always taken a very experimental approach into our tactics. So we run a very lean, very bare bones marketing program. So there's really not much to pull back on. There's not really anything we're gonna cut. One of the things that I'm interested in 2025, and this might be kind of a spicy take, but like my little feelers, I'm thinking that companies actually maybe like specifically marketing teams may be spending less money this year. It's not true for me, but I've seen like some events that we were looking at, being at get canceled because they couldn't get enough sponsors. I'm seeing a lot of like pullback on some of the smaller, like more fun style, like software investments. And so I'm just watching that because that's just like really interesting to see.
Do you think it's going to some other marketing initiative, or do you think it's going back into the business?
I think it's going back into the business.
Interesting.
That's what my hypothesis is. I could be wrong, but I wear crystals, so
Oh my god, I brought a crystal here.
So speaking of that, then we'll circle back to the reason we're all here is to talk about technology and why you buy certain technology. What a segue.
that was smooth.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Obviously, you're both customers of Warmly, but I'm interested in what are some of the tech in your stack that you absolutely can't live without? What does that look like? What are the different things you're using day in, day out, or your team is using that is like instrumental in doing what you do? Or if there even is something that's instrumental in doing what you do, or if it's all stuff that's just kind of like nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like HubSpot is kind of our bedrock. So we use HubSpot and Salesforce. Salesforce is like our source of truth for sales and marketing, SQLs, MQLs, etc.
Yeah.
But on the marketing side, our website is on HubSpot. Our email marketing platform is HubSpot. So we build ad audiences in HubSpot and elsewhere, but that's kind of the bedrock. And so like when we evaluate tech, it's okay, is it going to play nice with HubSpot and Salesforce? That's just the basics, right? And then on top of that, we have some like audience providers we use Clearbit, we use MetaMatch. But I talked about Facebook earlier, like the ability to build like a LinkedIn style audience on Facebook is really helpful. So we use those to build better audiences, and we're vertical SaaS, so like our audience is everything. Doing more with Warmly obviously is coming into play this year, and one of the things I'm excited about with Warmly is it's great to have the data, right? Website de-anonymization, who's on your website, that's super important. But what happens sometimes in marketing is you have the data, but then what do you do with it? And so Warmly represents the ability to actually put these things into action. And so that's a critical part of what we're going to do this year.
Here's a question for you. Is it going to be you or your MarOps guy that's going to be doing the orchestrations in Warmly?
I mean, as of right now, it's kind of a collaborative approach.
Yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Very cool. How about you? We had to talk about bad software vendors that approach you in bad ways, I think on the podcast.
I mean, I have lots of opinions about it, but the things that if these products went offline, I wouldn't be able to do my job would be obviously Salesforce and HubSpot. Lean data is our routing tool, and it's so entwined in everything we do. If it went out, I would cry. We are becoming more and more reliable on Dream data as an aggregator for all of our performance, and then feeding that into BigQuery and Looker to do our dashboarding. So it would hurt to have to pull that out. And then we, of course, use like data enrichment vendors like ZoomInfo or Apollo. And then User Gems is a part of the stack that I really like having. We're doing some really interesting experiments with Gemmy, their AI SDR, that I'm like not hot on the whole replacing the SDR function with AI, but theirs does a really nice job with their emails in particular. And then with Warmly, I mean, I'm not just like saying this, like nobody's paying me. Warmly is probably the tech that I'm most excited about in 2025. I just think that it's exactly what you said. I have had access to all of the datas forever, but acting on them is, you either need an insanely slick MOPS and sales ops infrastructure, all sorts of integrations. It's just super complex. And I feel like the beauty of Warmly is it makes it really simple. And then I know you asked him who is going to be managing the orchestrations. For us, our sales ops lead set it up, but because I'm so obsessed with it, I actually have my programmatic marketer kind of like leading the charge alongside MOPS and sales ops to put together all of the orchestrations.
Nice. Any particular orchestration that you had to put together that you think is like?
No, nothing fun comes to mind. We're like just scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface. So call me in 3 months and I will give you a hell of a case study. I promise. I promise. Yeah.